my brain was kind of blowing up a lot when you were talking through this, because I have a couple questions. So we know everything is supposed to be frozen during COVID, but I know that on the PPP loans that are also supposed to be frozen, that they're still showing interest. So I am curious, are the loans still showing interest even though they're saying they're not?
So most of the vets that I've talked to, once this program really got going, now there were some errors initially where they were some of the companies, they were still showing debt accumulating even though they said it wasn't, and I think that problem was resolved, and so I'm hearing less about that, and people are seeing 0% interest. Mm-hmm.
So Melanie has a question, which I think is super important here. Is reconsolidating with a private loan always a bad idea? Question mark.
All right. So reconsolidating. So refinancing, is that, to clarify, is that what, is she asking if refinancing is always a bad idea with a private loan?
Said yes. She said yes.
Okay, so with a private loan, so we're talking about loans that are not federal loans. It can certainly be a good idea to refinance if you are getting a better interest rate.
Sorry, I was reading the next question coming up. That was really good questions. Are we ready for the next one? Sorry, I just didn't.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I got very excited because I thought Kate asked a really good question. She says, if I'm on an income-driven repayment plan, is it beneficial for me to continue making payments while the payments are sustained?
And so if you're on an income-driven repayment plan, so typically without the CARES Act and without COVID, what the recommendation is to only pay the minimum payment on your student debt each month. And so, because your strategy then would be to go for forgiveness in 20 to 25 years and not ever pay off the debt in full. And so it's really, in most situations, it's just kind of a drop in the bucket if you're paying extra and it's not that beneficial for you. And so that's in general, and that carries into this interest-free time period as well with the CARES Act. And so if you're on an income-driven repayment plan, one thing to know is, of course, the payments, the $0 payments that are currently happening, those count toward forgiveness. And so even though you're not paying anything, it actually counts on your forgiveness. And so if you've got extra money, which you will because you're not making those payments, the extra money is really better used in other ways. So if you have credit card debt, I'd be paying that off right away. If you don't have a good emergency fund, go ahead and pump up that emergency fund now.
Awesome.
Use the money in that way rather than throwing it at the debt that you're going to end up getting forgiven later on anyway. If you have credit card debt paid off, an emergency fund is in place, then are you really saving enough money for the tax bomb? If you're not saving enough money for the tax bomb, or if you need to catch up because you weren't paying on it early on, then that's where I'd put my money next. And if you've got all of those boxes checked, then you could invest it.
So Kate, what she's basically telling us, like, put that sucker away for yourself or for the tax bomb when it comes. So Keisha has indicated here, I know it would be a risk, but because there is no interest on student loans right now, should I take the extra money and invest it? So same kind of question, should I invest it? If so, what kind of investment to increase my money? So that's a good question. We got, is there anything that we should be looking at? The world's just kind of crazy. So I don't know, is there?
Well, that's a loaded question because the first things I always ask when I hear that question are, do you have all those other boxes checked? Do you have an emergency fund? Are you saving enough for the tax bomb? Are you on track with that, which the VIN Foundation simulator can help you figure out if you're on track with that as well. And then if you still have extra money left over, then you could consider investing it. You could consider, financial advisors start talking about, if you don't have a Roth IRA, you could consider that. Beyond that, really, I can't recommend anything specific.
So she just graduated and hasn't signed up for the loan repayment yet. And I guess one of the questions that I have actually two questions, as she's determining which path to go in. It seems that, the aggressive repayment, right? The idea of doing the accelerated repayment really makes it harder to live. So how are you able to do that and still actually live? I worry about that with folks, and if we're putting so much pressure on them. So I am curious, what is the advice there?
Yeah, so it all depends. So not everybody can afford this. Not everybody can afford to pay off the debt. That's why we've got the that's why we have the income-driven repayment plans. And so for me, and I talked about the advantages I had with dual income, et cetera. Once I got serious about paying off my student debt, I paid it off in 3.5 years. And so for me, I sacrificed, but it wasn't that long of a time period. If we're talking about vets who really, in general, in our profession, it's a very stressful job. And there are improvements that are being made in our profession, but a lot of us are still working in hospitals that don't have the best culture, and we don't have as much support as we need. And so I don't want to say that everyone should be going for that accelerated repayment. Not at all. One, we can't all afford it. The numbers don't work out. And then two, if you have to work 60, 70 hours a week for an extended period of time, it's really hard to recommend that.
Yeah. And I would say right now, we didn't expect COVID, right? We had no idea COVID was going to be happening. And so I do think emergency funds are more important than they have ever been. So I would really encourage, if that funding is available, that you do that. Kate's asked a really good question, because I am also really concerned about this damn tax bomb. It says here, should your tax bomb account be a standard savings account, or should it be some sort of conservative investment account? That's a brilliant question.
That is an excellent question. Yeah, and the thing is, because we're talking about long-term savings, and because the amount of interest that you can get on a regular savings account is abysmally low, unfortunately, the recommendation that I've heard from every financial advisor that I've spoken with is to invest it in something like an index fund, invest it so that it does have some time to be able to grow.
So Keisha came back with another great question, because I think this is what everyone's trying to figure out. Okay, so post-COVID, right? So as that new grad, should she wait the full grace period before she decides to sign up for a loan repayment, or should she be putting it in now? What's the timing here? Because we have a lot of fourth years that are now like, okay, I've graduated, now what?
Yeah, so you're going to want to go ahead and actually, if you have any inkling, which most new grads are going to be in this camp, if you have any inkling that you might need to be on an income-driven repayment plan, go ahead and sign up for it at the time of graduation. Get those payments, get those $0 payments started now.
Oh my gosh, that's a great strategy. So that getting to the students, if you know students, start to share that out. Guys, I want to make sure you have plenty of times to still ask more questions at the tables. So what we are going to do is, I want to be sure. Oh wait, what's this one? This one says from Lucas, with your own risk tolerance. So he's giving counsel on that. So that's fantastic. So what we're going to do is, we're actually going to raise our glass right now for our final toast. But that doesn't mean we're ending. I want to make sure we've got Grace at the tables. We're going to have Meredith going to the table, so you can ask your own personal questions. And that way you're getting some of that insight that you need. We do have many resources that I believe that Shannon has either posted or is going to post in here from the VIN Foundation student loan repayment, from the idea of the understanding a little bit more on the accelerated debt repayment calculator. There is the debt-free Vets Facebook page that is Meredith's that you should also join as quickly as possible. We do have the Veterinary Financial Summit, as I had thrown up my sheet of paper here. And for those of you, if this is your first time, I think you've now figured out we don't allow PowerPoints. So that's why there's all our faces the whole time, because we feel it's better to have a conversation. Finally, and most importantly, not one more vet. So if you see one of your colleagues struggling with this issue, please be sure that you are looking out for them and following the guidelines there, or guidance there. And then finally, and most importantly, Meredith is actually giving us her email, which is like, oh my God, and crazy. So we also are going to be providing that to you too. I will be posting this video on our Facebook page, so if you want to refer back to it, or if you've signed up to receive our communications, you'll also get an email with those links embedded so that you have them. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to quickly have us do a closing toast and then send us to the tables.
All right, so for our closing toast, so of course tonight was about student debt, but there's a lot more to our financial lives than just our student debt. And so for the closing toast, it's going to be to retiring before we're 90.
Oh my gosh, yes. Let's hope it's a lot sooner than that.